Hey, everybody. I'm David Bloom with Next TMT here with Daniel Frankel for a new venture with Media Play News where we are talking about one big topic at a time. Today's stuff, big shock. Warner Brothers Discovery, or maybe just Warner Brothers being bought by Netflix, or all three names being bought by Paramount Sky. Lots of back and forth. Daniel, what's the latest that you've seen?
Well, David, a lot has happened in the last 48 hours. The Warner Brothers Discovery Board has told its shareholders, strongly recommended that they reject the Paramount Skydance hostile takeover bid and accept the agreement for $82.7 billion with Netflix. In so doing, Warner Brothers said that they're concerned about where the money is coming from, mostly the Middle East through Jared Kushner.
No, Jared
Until
Kushner has now dropped out, actually.
yeah,
He's
that collapsed.
Yeah. The 250 million he was throwing in, half of which was Saudi money or more. Yeah,
So there was
he's pulled out.
things about the money kind of communicated in vague terms. There was a view that Netflix's money was a lot safer and cleaner. Netflix says it has safer passage through regulatory channels. At this point, Paramount has said that they've been ghosted and mistreated and treated very badly and will come back because Warner Brothers is not informing its board correctly. It's misinforming its board or its shareholders. So we'll see where this goes. It does look like that David Ellison and Paramount have been dealt a big setback.
You know, it's interesting because they've got to do this tender offer, and obviously it's a little not that different than what, Bob Iger and Disney went through with outside hostile push to get the crocodile, whose name now escapes me, but get him onto the board to help goose Disney shares, which were scuffling along. The shares ended up going up quite a bit while he was there. He sold, made a lot of money, and left. And since then, Disney's in the kind of a mediocre mid range. But this one's pretty interesting. I heard an interview with a board member of Warner Brothers Discovery who said that, in fact, he said, not to put it to put it directly, neither David Ellison nor his father committed their own money. They did not make a commitment to put in their money to ultimately backstop the deal. Larry Ellison, considered the second richest man in the world, worth somewhere around $380 billion, maybe as much as 400 on a good week at the stock market. Scuffling along right now, the company that he founded, the technology giant, because it's leveraged up a bunch of stuff. So maybe that makes it more complicated for him to dive into another 40 or $50 billion backed in debt, backed by his own back pockets. The fact that he wouldn't do that when the street sort of expected that that was the ultimate backstop is interesting.
Yeah. I wonder where it goes from here. It does seem like the whole $8 billion play for Paramount was the first step in a multi-step process to really get in on the studio business on the part of David Ellison's part. What does he do now is the question. Seems like he's kind of stymied here.
Yeah, well, I mean, the tender offer will take months to unfold. I mean, I think the thing that's interesting is the assertion that they have the clearer regulatory path, even with Kushner pulling out to take away that obvious self-dealing component. I don't think it goes away. And Trump still wants to spank CNN. He still wants to reshape its board and leadership as he continues to try to
About
reshape
60 minutes
media.
ago, he implied
Well,
that
he's been
was
making noise about 60 Minutes now for a couple of years, right? So nothing new there. But yeah, I mean, the real question is, how do you even define what's a clear path regulatory wise, given that it's not clear that this is in fact anti-competitive in an era when there are so many other kinds of media and stuff occupying people's attention. So I find it a really interesting challenge here. The last time the DOJ jumped in to try to stop a Warner Media deal, they got their butts kicked up and down the street. That was under Trump 1 when AT&T was doing it. They had a really lame approach. This time, the guy who was at the DOJ overseeing that first lawsuit to block the AT&T purchase of Warner Brothers, what was back then Warner Brothers, I think Time Warner. Yeah, it was Warner Brothers. It was just Warner Brothers, I think. The guy back then is now working with Paramount Skydance. So we'll see how that goes.
well, that doesn't bode well for them.
it doesn't bode well because they were not ready for game time. When it came time to get in front of that judge, it was among the more embarrassing major regulatory failures in some time. And it would have probably been better for everybody if they hadn't let the deal go through. That would have been one less set of Kenner or whatever for the poor employees of Warner Brothers. But be that as it may.
There was an interesting paper from Moffat Nathanson yesterday about Netflix's motives, which have been described cynically as kind of a defensive posture. In the darker terms, taking Warner Brothers off the board and depriving Paramount of it for however time a floundering regulatory process would take.
Yeah, I win, they lose, I double win, basically, right? That's kind of the reasoning behind that.
Exactly. Robert Fishman sees it as the best defense is a good offense. If you see low hanging fruit, assets that still have value, you still improve and better monetize that are hanging out there, as they were with Paramount, Skydance initiating a bid. You take them. They have the cash. Why not buy those?
Yeah. And the other part of that shouldn't be lost is it could impact Netflix if it doesn't have access to the Warner Brothers library, which it routinely licenses and partners with to new series. Something like 22% of their view time for their licensed library product that they get from around Hollywood comes from Warner Brothers. And having that in-house, A, saves them some money, but B, ensures that they still have that. We can just look back at what they did with Friends. I mean, that was nuts, right? Friends was a show that was the biggest thing in television in the late 90s. A bunch of kids that weren't even born back then discovered it a couple of years ago during the pandemic and right after on Netflix. And said, hey, this is a pretty cool new show. Why don't they all have like cell phones? I don't understand.
As they will with Joey, the spinoff.
Yes, they will be all over Joey. I'm sure that Joey will come back as Joey Jr. or something. With that, we should probably wrap this thing up. There will be more, much, much more for probably months to come about Warner Brothers Media, the media takeover by either Netflix or Paramount Skydance of Warner Brothers Discovery or some portion therein. And with that, let's wrap this up. I am David Bloom with my partner, Daniel Frankel from Next TMT here on behalf of Media Play News. Thanks for listening.